pocket, but none in your dreams. Same tired eyes, same tired plans. A fire in your chest, but no place to land. Steps on a road that never bends. They smile when you lose, they wait for the end. Hope slips away, soft as the rain. The wheel keeps turning, but it don't change a thing. One of you walk, but the path just folds. Speak your truth, but the air stays cold. They dig in deep, they won't feel the flame. You will never, never break that chain. Never break that chain. Lips full of salt, eyes full of gray. Don't reach too high, they always say. Your hands are young, your thoughts are wild, but time here runs like a fatherless child. The roots are thick, the roots are proud. They drink the sky, they choke the ground. You scream in waves, you break in vain. Still they whisper, keep things the same. Run if you want, but the path just folds. Speak your truth, but the air stays cold. They dig in deep, they won't feel the flame. You will never, never break that chain. Never break that chain. Born to move, built to stand. Freedom forged by working hands. Raise the flag, hold the line. We were made for this time. Got a strong spirit wide. We don't run, we don't hide. We are the stars of freedom, we carry the flame. We fight, we pray, we rise again. God bless the brave, God bless the land. We are the stars, we take a stand. Voices loud, hearts alive. Every stripe, every right. From the fields to city steel. We are truth, we are real. Bound by grace, built to last. We don't fear the storm we pass. We are the stars of freedom, we carry the flame. We fight, we pray, we rise again. God bless the brave, God bless the land. We are the stars, we take a stand.
Why are young men going to have pride in Maine? Are they going to have pride in being tombstone cutters? Or are they going to have pride in being builders, like their grandfathers and great-grandfathers were, when they turned New York from a wetland into one of the most powerful cities on the planet? It doesn't seem like it today, but it once was the pinnacle of what man in the West was capable of. We must believe that this place where we live in this time can give birth to that kind of glory, glory that has been denied to us for the entirety of this state's life. We were created to oppose the oppression of man. This is the only reason why Maine exists. We were deliberately separated to oppose the oppression of man. And I can think of no other way to pay that back on our 250th anniversary than striking a shovel into the ground and declaring we will build the greatest civilization our ancestors couldn't even imagine. We will build the shining city on the hill right here in Maine.
You can face the shadows beyond the hate. You can break the silence beyond the silence. We can find the mercy. I will fight for it. I will fight for the day we walk as brothers.
Space, the final frontier. These are the stories of the USS Dorego and its continuing mission to boldly go where no Republican has gone before. Bring Milja and Shenville back to Federation space alive. Godspeed, Captain Charles. Red alert! Take us out of warp and bring forward shields to max.
We're approaching the Slaver Collective. The Romulan Democratos was detected here 2 hours ago. Captain, I'm detecting subspace distortions that could indicate a cloaked Romulan warbird is in the area.
That's the smallest warbird I've ever seen.
The Democratos is charging her forward disruptor banks.
Let's give them the full Sunday breakfast. Don't let them fire first!
Captain's log stardate 46155. The USS Dorego has captured Milja and Shenbel. They're accused of impersonating high-ranking Starfleet officers and then abusing that stolen authority to flood our colony worlds with Borg soldiers. They will stand trial in Federation court.
It doesn't have to be like this, Sparky! You didn't have to betray the people!
I am the people!
Did you bring the pizza? Get her out of here, she'll see her day in court.
Life can change in an instant, and sometimes it changes with a brick hitting you in the face. Sort of like what happened to Becky.
Am I going to jail?
He saved your life. That ICE agent brought you here. Have you even said thank you yet?
Thank you for what you're doing out there.
Blue Gatorade is my favorite. How did you know?
At least you didn't suffer any brain damage. Do you remember what happened?
You saved my life. Thank you.
And thanks to Chad, Becky's world will never be the same. I fell in love with an alt-right angel. Available somewhere.
Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I. Send me."
We are now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and divided the light from the darkness.
The time has come. Believe in Maine. Your love is all we need. All we need to break through to our destiny. Our destiny.
Yes, we made it through another week. That's right, another week went by. Did you remember to shovel during all this thawing, right? Making sure there's no ice building up. It's enough, it's a live stream. Calm down. Gosh, every week with this, guys. Anyway, did you remember to shovel when all the melting was going on? Making sure you didn't have some big old ice pond forming at the bottom of your driveway? Probably better make sure of that, because apparently we're going to get hit with another snowstorm. But even though that's some bad news, guys, let's make sure that we started off with something funny. Apparently, there was a demonstration in Washington regarding what happened in Minnesota, and there's some commentary about it. So here we go.
Hello, Resistance. This one's pretty sad. This is a bunch of theater students paying tribute to Renee Good, and what they're doing is they're using their bodies to make the car that she was using to observe life after dropping off her kids. And then the ISIS came out and was going to try to murder her they wanted to. And she's just, no, let me go back. And boom, boom, boom. And they executed her right there in broad daylight. And then she flew up to heaven.
She flew
to
up
be
to
with
heaven.
Jesus Christ, the brown Jesus. And then the car's going away. And the people are flipping around. And then here comes Alex Pretty. And he's saving the woman from the Nazis. And this is exactly how it went down. They were fighting around. They did a little twirl like West Side Story. And then he's like, oh, I don't want to dance with you. But he goes, you're going to dance with us. And boom, they shot him. Boom, 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 boom. And he's dead on the ground. And they're like figure skaters saying, see what we did? We just destroyed democracy. But then the people of Minnesota all got together like the Munchkins and did a little happy dance to show America that Minnesota's not racist. The Nazis are the racist ones, and we're going to stop them with love and joy. And then they come back from heaven, I guess, and they're looking at each other, and they're like, hey, you want to go get some Pizza Hut? And they're like, okay, we'll go get some Pizza Hut. And resist.
Yeah, resist. Yeah, I love that. It's a really great recap of these people making fools of themselves, right? But on a more serious note, we need to pay attention to what's going down in Lewiston because things are finally popping off with all this money being misplaced to NGOs that gave that money to people who were not involved in that very awful, tragic shooting. So I'm going to take your attention from this fun little dance project over down to Lewiston now, right here in good old Maine instead of Washington. We have former Lewiston City Councilor Tim Gallant giving an impassioned speech about why this action that's going on down there, this act of resisting ICE down in Lewiston, is silly and a waste of people's time. Let's take a listen.
Tim Gallant, Ward 7, prior councilman here for this fine city. I'm here against this ordinance. I just can't believe we wasted this much city money. We're crying about a budget, paying a lawyer to look at things we don't need. That is just beyond my comprehension of stupidity. My biggest problem with all this is you're trying to support 10% of the city by the census in 2025. What about the other 90%?
What about the other 90%? As many polls across the state have proven. Now, of course, these aren't official Rasmussen polls or whatever you'd prefer to get from an official polling firm or corporation. I'm not sure what they call themselves. But either way, these are polls that are done by like BDN, the Maine News Center, just polls on Twitter, that sort of thing, polls on Facebook. And an overwhelming majority, somewhere between 60 to 80% of Mainers agree with getting hostile, criminal, illegal entrants into our nation out of our nation. Okay, and I have to be careful because I'm on YouTube and you can't say certain naughty words right now because they're very touchy. Remember, they crashed yesterday.
What are you doing for them? What have you done for them? 5% tax increase? And then we had our mayor, and I'll quote, ICE operations in Maine have failed to improve public safety. How many gunshot issues have we had since ICE came to town? How about zero? Look at the police blotter. Zero.
Isn't that interesting? It's almost like the criminals don't want to do crime when there's a law enforcement agency out there looking for them. How about that? Isn't it interesting that in the presence of law enforcement or a witness that can report to a law enforcement official, you know, a Leo, what you end up having is a lower crime rate? That's very interesting. It's almost like Law and Order actually works, and it's not some kooky wooky thing to punish people that don't get sunburns. Isn't that interesting?
When's the last time we had 3 or 4 months of zero problems? But that don't count. That's not a crime problem, obviously, to the mayor. So I think we need to smarten up and think about this. You don't need this ordinance. There's one coming. You need to think about public safety and how we take care of it. You need to think about how to get ICE back in here, because if we didn't have people who are illegal, they wouldn't be here.
Pretty simple, right? If you don't have the attracting factor, then the things that are attracted to that aren't going to be attracted to where you are. A la, if you have a illegal entrant in Lewiston, you're going to have ICE coming to take a look for that person. Very simple.
You know, I keep hearing they're hiding in their houses. If you're not illegal, why do you hide in your house? Or you have an illegal friend or a partner or somebody else involved in the system. The kids are hyped up in school for the simple reasons our teachers hyped them up.
What do you know? Isn't it interesting how the authority figures in a child's life can help shape their view of the world? It's kind of the reason why we have school at all, is that we trust the adults to shape the minds of the young ones so that they grow up to be productive members of society, not people that burn down cities.
Just like up in Bangor when they did a march against ICE and had really ugly signs all organized by teachers, not kids, during school hours. What is wrong with people? They're out there trying to help and save us. Do they make mistakes? Sure. Raise your hand up there who's never made a mistake. I didn't see no hands. So yeah, there's going to be problems, and we'll let the legal system take care of it, but not at the city level. We have enough problems right now to try to take care of on our own.
How about that? A man in Lewiston talking about the problems in Lewiston, not the problems from the federal government that Lewiston has absolutely no power over. Isn't that interesting? It's almost like doing the people's business means doing the people's business. How about that?
So stop wasting your time and money and our time on an ordinance that means nothing to 70, 80, 90% of our community. It means nothing to them. It gives them nothing.
Well, actually, what it gives them is the uncertainty that their community might be populated by people who are violent, seeking to stay away from law enforcement groups like ICE that would take them out of the country for being violent and or disorderly or disruptive to the legal status that they are supposedly holding up as, good, right? Their good legal status. So again, it proves this point that it doesn't actually give them zero. The citizens of Lewiston now have to worry, okay? They have to worry that Lewiston is harboring more of these people who have come to Lewiston, knowing that Lewiston's police are not allowed to assist ICE. That attractive factor, remember that? The attracting factor? Well, what do you know? It would seem that the hunter, the prey, the hunter seeking the prey would go where the prey is and where there aren't other, distractions.
No value added. That's not true. Because when ICE is here, the value added is it's safe to come downtown. It's safe to walk around some of these communities we've missed.
That's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And he remains civil in all of that. That's not something I could guarantee. This is one of the things where you get going and you end up over as they're thinking about all the other things they have to do with their day rather than listen to what you're trying to explain to them. And it becomes infuriating because this isn't a debate about whether or not we need to be able to be allowed to hang our laundry out to dry, out on the clothesline. This isn't something mundane like that. This isn't something like, oh yes, well, we can't have skateboarders on Main Street during the Christmas parade. It's not something temporary even. This is an ordinance of a town, a city, a space in Maine that has decided that it is going to be a disruptive cog, a monkey wrench in the federal operation to rid our nation of violent or otherwise illegal entrance into our nation, okay? That's what this is. We're not having some polite little disagreement over a park bench. We're talking about people who commit heinous crimes. Heinous high crimes. These are things that people of our own nation, our own citizens, go away for decades having committed. And yet Lewiston is saying, no, you can't come here and expect our law enforcement to help you remove these people who commit heinous crimes, sometimes against children even, all right? Sometimes these are traffickers that we are trying to get our hands on. Well, I say we as I'm part of ICE, but I'm not. That the nation is trying to get their hands on, ICE is trying to get their hands on, and guess what happens? These people get in the way of that and create an opportunity for that criminal to continue harming people. And the only justification they have is that someone that they have a strong disdain for, that borders on an animalistic hatred, is in charge of that operation. And thus, all acts by that operation cannot have any valid root. Okay? Now, to drive this point home, we had another gentleman here, and he came to speak about what Lewiston had done with the money regarding the shooting situation, okay? The tragedy of the shooter. And so here we have it right here. This fella is Benjamin Dyer, and he was shot 5 times during the Lewiston shooting, okay? So this man is going to explain just how his experience has been with Lewiston and the NGOs and how that money and how the respect associated with what happened has simply left him with a lot of questions.
Benjamin Dyer, Harbor, Maine, Lewiston survivor. I was shot 5 times that night. I lost my finger, I lost my bicep, my tricep. You guys can't hide it. You can't miss it. Don't look away. Councilor Harriman, please look. Don't look away. That's disrespect.
Excuse me.
Councilor.
I have looked.
Councilor, you have not been recognized. Councilor,
focus on what the man is saying.
has been
If you could please not police what I do with my body.
Councilor.
I looked, and now I am listening.
Councilor Harriman, you're out of order. Thank you. No, we're not recognizing anybody right now. We're at public comment. Please continue, sir. I spent 19
Thank you. How about that?
When you're
What do you know? When you get a little rough with them, they do decide to follow their own rules. Isn't that a miracle? How about that? You don't see this too often where they get caught in their own dookie. They've stepped in shit and they have to make sure that they wipe it off as quick as they can because their pride's on the line or something. You don't see them correcting one another too often. Usually they team up on a disruptive force, but Mr. Dyer here isn't someone that can be dismissed so easily, I guess. All right?
I spent 19 days in the hospital. When your foundations that you guys set up for fundraising, I wasn't part of it because I was still in that hospital bed fighting for my life. So when you hear, oh, you guys were talked to, wrong. I spent 18 months out of work because of this situation. I went back to work because disability payments don't cover your mortgage. Just because I was shot, still needed to heat the house.
And so this is, he goes on to talk about the family here, and I'll let him go.
Still needed to feed the family. Still needed to pay a mortgage to have a place to live.
And so again, like what he's trying to explain is that life continued after all of this, and the demands of having a normal life continued despite how this stuff was mismanaged, despite how, again, the city has been absolutely cold-shouldered to these victims, has been nearly shutting them out completely unless there's some political opportunity to try and, push one side of the tribe to the other, that sort of thing, this tribalist use of the tragedy, right? And so Mr. Dyer has come in to explain that on his, ground level experience as someone who survived this tragedy, this heinous act that was committed, he's not had the kind of support that he was led to believe was going to be rendered to him. And as a result, he's left with questions.
The money you guys raised is missing. And I say you guys were the community. Everybody was out there and proud. We're raising all this money, national news, woohoo! When the time comes, where'd the money go?
Where did the money go? Well, we now know it went into the hands of Somalis who claimed to be traumatized by the event despite not having any physical presence at that event or in the ensuing chaos as the assailant attempted to escape.
All I'm asking is you take the time, review the wrong, and do the right.
It seems pretty simple to admit that there was a problem and then work toward a solution. But the problem in admitting that there was a problem is that you have to go and correct that problem on the ground level, and that means confronting the Somalis on how they conducted themselves during that. That also means confronting these various NGOs that supply the Maine Democrats with a lot of backing. Now, that could be backing in like people knocking on doors, making phone calls, this sort of thing, or it could simply be mounds of cash. How about that, right? How about that?
The simplest part of this is we teach our children not to lie because one little lie grows into a big one. Well, guess what? Right the ship. Because if you're the captain mayor, you're not carrying 5-gallon pails in your boat telling all of your council members to keep bailing that way. What you're going to do is you're going to stop the ship, you're going to bring it to port, and you're going to have it fixed. And that's all that we're asking for, the survivors. the families, the heirs to the deceased, because you can sit and name them all you want and publicize it and have a yearly parade through town like we're heroes. We're not. We're individuals that are just asking for accountability and support. And guess what? We don't get it.
And again, like I was explaining before, when there's an opportunity to politicize this in order to make the community feel one way or another about one tribe or the other, okay? That has the politicians, local and otherwise, jumping all over this, ready to say whatever they need to in order to get votes, get donations, this sort of thing. Meanwhile, Mr. Dyer is explaining that in all of this, circus act of trying to make this the most important thing for one tribe or another to talk about, the reality is that the people who are actually affected by that tragedy are being left out in the cold. And at worse than that even, they're being used as hood ornaments for decisions being made without their consent and also made on their behalf. So this, again, it's a double up problem. You got that money problem, but then you also have these people who have had their lives stolen in service of politics. These names that we hear recited, those people are being used, those identities are being used to make us feel one way or another about what's being talked about in that moment. Those names aren't being listed out in order to make sure that we have a reverence for their what took them from us. Again, I have to be careful because it's YouTube. But what is being used, right? What's being used is the politics of what happened there to make people feel one way or another. And it leaves Mr. Dyer, his family, and other families, as he said, the heirs to the deceased, in a very uncomfortable position, as speaking out seems as though you're ungrateful, and being silent negates the abuse that's going on. What happened in Lewiston that started all of this was evil. And now again, what's happening to the people who survived that incident and the families of those who did not is evil. It's not enough to simply sit there and not repeat the mistake. You have to make sure that it is addressed and a plan put forward to make sure that it can never, ever happen again. This is an evil act. This is a divorce from reality, a fracture of the human soul. When you go out here and you betray people's trust in their most vulnerable moments. And that decision to do that came when all of this money started pouring in, and all of a sudden that blood on their hands was cold. And it didn't matter who those people were anymore. It only mattered what could be gained by using them for whatever purpose, for donations, for political power. Didn't matter to these NGOs, to these local and maybe national politicians that keep wanting to use this incident as a way to speak to how they feel about certain controls one way or another. And so I just ask you, as you go through your daily routine, as you say your daily prayers, please remember families like Mr. Dyer's. Please remember these families in Lewiston are not consenting to having what happened to them being used as a wrecking ball against one side or another. That these people are suffering. And most likely those who lost relatives will suffer for the rest of their life. But turning them into weapons in order to harm one side or the other, in order to make an argument for one control or another, is evil. Taking the money from them and handing that off to people who had absolutely nothing to do with that incident is evil. Remaining stuck up about that incident is evil. And resisting coming to the truth about it is the most evil you could possibly practice. Again, I remind you, we are not talking about a park bench. We're not talking about skateboarders on Main Street during the Christmas parade. We are talking about people who died. We are talking about people like Mr. Dyer who are maimed, who are harmed for the rest of their life, who have had severe damage dealt to them, but still have to go on living, still have to go on proving that they have the strength to march forward. Those people are still out there and they're being used like this. And it's evil to continue twisting this around. I'm going to puke. It's awful. It stirs my stomach so much because guess what? Like you, I'm powerless to do anything about this. The only thing I can do is raise my voice and let people know that we have to make sure that it can't happen again. It can't happen here. It can't happen elsewhere in Maine. It needs to stop totally. We need to stop using these NGOs as treasure troves, and we need to stop using donated money to pay off political allies. Had the city not given this money over, had the NGOs not given this money over, maybe they could have put a park together. Maybe they could have done something to make sure that events like what was happening during that incident are better protected. But they didn't. They used it for politics. And they used those people for politics. And it's evil. Flatly and totally. And it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming, okay? So we're going to jump over here to more fun down in Lewiston. We have John Featherston, the man without fear. At some point, I'm going to get together my AI assets, and I'm going to make like a Daredevil trailer for John Featherston, where he just goes around with a cell phone camera. And it's like the Daredevil thing, because the guy, he just has no fear. He just plunges into the heart of these conversations with these people, knowing full well that they don't respect the same morality that he does, knowing full well that they are very combative right now, very much stressed to the brink. And so he just walks in there just ready to go. Like, I admire it. I really do, that he just walks in there just completely fearless, seeking the truth. And look what happens when you do that, when you go in there seeking the truth.
Cecilia, I think you owe me an apology. I don't know any apology. Yeah, you called me a white flag. And then we went to ensure that this overlapping. So there is a goal for this to
You called me. So again, they just go into these chants like it's some kind of magic spell that they can give, they're going to hex you like a witch or something. You're going to turn into a gingerbread man or something. It's bizarre why they do this, but this is what they default to when they don't have any other thing. And also you can sometimes catch them where they'll start barking at you like a dog. No, you think that's not real, but go ahead, look it up. Liberals barking like dogs. I don't know where they got the idea that this is threatening, but you'll occasionally catch some college-age liberal ladies that just decide to start going off on you like a Shih Tzu. It's amazing.
Stop harassing me. 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 Get out of my face.
See, and that's what she does. She's just trying to create a scene. There's a tall white man, and obviously if she screams loud enough and looks hostile enough, she can tell them that he was saying all these horrible things to her and create a completely new narrative. You see what's happening here? She's trying to make sure that John looks like the aggressor, when in reality, she's the one who is doing all this clapping and yelling.
Stop harassing me. You're the one in my face, you old man. Get out of here.
Yeah, and she wants to be a representative, by the way. Okay? She's the one who wants to go out here and represent Lewiston, and she's like, you old man. Because John Featherston comes in and asks questions about fraud. Oh no, how terrible. Now, this is another view of it. And again, they try to remove him from the situation because, being white in these spaces is very dangerous in a place like Maine, apparently. Again, if you ask the right questions, you're bound to get removed from the space because we just can't have question asking. It's all about the chanting, you see, like it's a magic spell or something like that. And again, that's what we're dealing with on that end. So that is the Lewiston segment of what's happening here. So we're going to move on now to what's going on in the Capitol in Augusta as questions continue to rise about just how migrants are getting driver's licenses and registration to vote and all of these bizarre happenings that good old Shenabellos tells us isn't happening. So As Steve Robinson says here, Maine Secretary of State is giving driver's license to people on the basis of their deportation orders. You're not going to believe this. Buckle up.
Under documents required for limited legal presence, number 9, it says a notice to appear, court hearing, notice, or other evidence indicating a currently pending removal proceeding is.
So just so you know, what that is a court order to deport. Just to keep that very simple, that is a court order to deport, all right? Just so you understand what this is. Now, why that's on a list, okay, is about to be revealed.
An acceptable form of documentation. So it's the secretary's decision then to allow a summons to court saying that we're going to deport you as a document that says you're here, you got a valid status to be here.
All right, so before we get to the punchline of this joke, just so we're all clear, the deportation order from the judge that says you need to get out can be used to obtain a driver's license in the state of Maine as proof of your residency. I'm not kidding you. You just heard it with your own ears. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's hear it again. Let's hear it again from the top.
Is an acceptable form of documentation. So it's the secretary's decision then to allow a summons to court saying that we're going to deport you as a document that says you're here, you got a valid status to be here. Is that correct?
So there you go, okay? So now you understand. If you're getting deported from here, that qualifies you to get a driver's license. So here's the punchline.
One of the reasons why that's on the list is we don't know at that time when they're scheduled what the outcome of that hearing is going to be.
Yes, we do. That hearing is because this person has a status in this country that is illegal, be it through the expiration of their visa or simply crossing the border without permission. How about that? Isn't it interesting that our Democrat friends somehow managed to rig our system so much that we ended up with a outcome where registering to vote even can be accomplished by having a court order to get out of the country? Okay? That's proof of residency, as far as they're concerned. The order to leave is proof that you're allowed to be here. That's how desperate they are. That's the system that we've allowed to fester here because of what I call political apathy. And it's not like I invented the term, don't worry. But it's political apathy. Here in Maine, the Conservative Party has a lot of political apathy. What we enjoy very much is sitting around and talking about how bad it is. I believe Mr. Charles admired this, brought this up about Mr. Gingrich, was Newt Gingrich liked to admire a problem. You know, understand it from every corner, every direction, but building a way out of it was the last on the list of things to do with Mr. Gingrich. He liked very much tearing things apart, but building a way out of it was another chapter in the book. And so this is what I'm trying to get everybody around, is the idea that you and I, regular old 9-to-5 Mainers, regular old people, we need to become politically active. Whether it is just showing up at our regular party meetings or, in fact, making sure that we're part of the governing of those meetings. Maybe we become state delegates. Maybe we make sure that we become part of what I call the Red Council that basically decides what happens in the Republican Party, up, down, left, or right. Okay? We need to make sure that regular 9-to-5 Americans, regular 9-to-5 Mainers are on those control boards, are making sure that our voices are being heard, that we're not just crossing our fingers and hoping some angel comes down from the sky and fixes all of our problems for us. That time has long passed. Mr. Trump can only do what he can do. He's at the federal level, and we have a very distinct barrier between federal power and state power for a very good reason. And that's why we need to make sure that regular 9-to-5 Mainers are getting involved in this. It's not to say that our current Republican leadership has any type of elitism to them or whatever. It's to make sure that the seats that are occupied by Democrats are occupied by Republicans that want to build Maine up. I'm very tired of this place being known as a good place to die. I can't think of anything more infuriating for someone under 40 to hear. The big thing that you're going to run into as we try to fix this is that Republicans are very busy people. We have jobs, we have obligations. We're soccer coach, baseball coach, wrestling coach. The moms on the other end have their obligations to what they're up to. And so it's very difficult to try and raise up people that want to go out and be so politically active and also so politically exposed. Okay? That's a very hard bargain to ask people when you think about the consequences of what the left brings down on you when you say things that they don't like. And we're going to talk about that when we get to Rupert Lowe a little bit here, okay? This is an important conversation that leads to that. And so what you're left with is you're left with trying to ask people, would you please commit social sewer slide and come on out here and put your politics that you know your friends in the group chat aren't going to like, that you know relatives of yours you may not have a regular like discourse with are not going to like, that you know you're going to end up battling your kids about because they're at school being brainwashed that what you think is wrong. It's a lot to ask someone on top of their job, on top of their obligations to their church as well. But we must take that leap. We must cross that line. We must become those people that manage to at least show up and be heard. Because otherwise, we're going to have things like this continue to happen where a deportation order qualifies you as a resident in this state. It's a joke, and it's meant to demoralize you. It's meant to make you think it's impossible to stop these people because they flaunt their power so much. This is absolutely a taunt. It's a tease. It's looking you straight in the eyes and saying, do something about it. What are you going to do? What are we going to do? Are we going to wait for that angel to come down? Are we going to wait for God to send a holy angel to bring solution to us? A final end to this act that we're up to, this dance that we can't stop dancing? Or are we going to finally step up and take this power into our hands and say, yes, we are Americans. We were given this land as part of the manifest destiny that God set forward for us. This is the promised land. And we must make sure that we treat it this way. Even our far-flung corner of Maine is very precious to what God's plan is. And we need to make sure that we are upfront about this, that we are straightforward and straight on with what we want to do. We march in 1,000 different directions, and the Democrats take advantage of that by only having one direction. And they police that. That's not a fun time when you're in that conga line of doom headed to the cliff's edge, because that's where that ideology leads, right off the edge. Meanwhile, we're marching in 1,000 different directions, and it makes it hard to coalesce people around an idea. It's all things we have to think about as we approach these elections in November, as we approach our primary for a gubernatorial candidate in June. That these things right here, a court order deportation order, qualifies you to get a driver's license in the state of Maine as a resident. These things right here will not be stopped unless you and I become politically involved. That's the reality. And we'll move on down to the insanity chart here. Maine Wire made a meme here, or someone provided one for them. And it says right here, why are people staying home to avoid ICE? Okay. Why are they voting if they're avoiding ICE? It says, why are people who are staying home to avoid ICE voting? This is a meme about the goose that haunts you about the truth. But here's Shenna Bellows explaining that she's very worried about this.
I think the greater concern, what we saw with the recent ICE surge, was people, and I know many of you were involved in the mutual aid networks of support, we saw people afraid to go to work, afraid to go to school. Absenteeism in the greater Portland school districts was over 20%. We saw people afraid to go get groceries. And so my concern becomes, if you're afraid to go to work, you're going to be afraid to go to vote.
She knew what she'd done right there. You can hear it. She'd committed, though, and she was stuck. She had to go through with it, but it just clicked up in her head like, oh, wait, I'm telling them that the people who are afraid to be seen by ICE are also voting. And it doesn't take a massive leap in logic, right? You're not out here like Spock connecting different parts of the universe together in order to understand what exactly the problem is with that equation, okay? So let's review. Shenna Bellows is very worried that people who are already staying home because of the presence of ICE will not be present on voting day because of the presence of ICE. You want to take a minute and maybe, just have a laugh? You want to have a laugh about that? Because guess what? That's probably the best stand-up line she's ever given. You have to ask yourself, what are the people in the crowd actually thinking when they hear this? I don't think they're really receiving much. They're just kind of going off the vibe. A lot of them are addicted to SSRIs. A lot of them are overdosing on SSRIs. So, those antidepressants make you feel things and hear things that aren't really there. But there again, there's Shenna Bellows saying, whoops, I just admitted that illegal aliens are voting. Whoopsie-cadoodles. The guy next to her, he's got like this 10,000 yard stare. He's like, when is she going to stop talking? Look at his face. When is she going to stop talking?
And so then that's where our awesome absentee voting, protected by Maine Voices, Maine Votes, and constructed over years, we have 30 days of no excuse absentee voting.
Which makes it so much easier to just pack on the votes. It makes it way easier to go out there and make sure that, we've got 30 days, so an extra 10,000 people can vote, right? People who would be hiding from ICE can go out there and vote a month ahead rather. Isn't that interesting? How you and I, who show up to vote in person, our votes aren't inhibited by ICE because what do you know? We're citizens of this nation. Most of us through birth, right? But also there are those of people who immigrated legally. What do you know? There are those too out there. They're rare, but they're out there. But we now have Shenna Bellows admitting that the people who otherwise would be running away from ICE, those people will be getting one of those fancy 30-day ballots. That's a complete mystery because we're not allowed to write names on ballots because that defeats the purpose of a secret ballot. Isn't it fun how they managed to work this stuff out and we were just, okay, I got to go to work, Shenna, whatever you got to do. We just let them do it. She said it took years to get to this point. Well, obviously, because Republicans, we were busy. And now they have 30 days to distribute to people who otherwise would not be voting because, drumroll, they're illegal.
People can call their clerk and get their ballot. They can go online and request it and have it mailed to them.
So you can just go online and request it even. You don't even need to prove that you're a citizen on top of that, right? You just go online and be like, oh, I need an absentee ballot. They're like, okay, cool, here you go. What you're going to do is scan in your license into the Maine.gov website? Really? No.
They can make arrangements to get their ballot in other ways, or they could go in person to the clerk's office early. I think
Well, I don't know. With ICE around, can they really go to the clerk's office? I don't know. But I wanted to show you who Shenna Bellows is protecting in all of this, okay? So here's this. Now, this lady says that she came to the USA to make money. And we'll take a listen to what she has to say.
Let me hold your hand when I say this. We do not move to America because we think it's a better country.
What a surprise. It's almost like the people who came here were expecting some type of free money, free housing, and a free life, and all types of benefits of being an American without the responsibilities or respect for it.
We move here because it's a little less worse than our other countries. Because you're stupid to think that we moved to this country for some hot dogs and some baseball. We have better vibes, music, food, culture, history, literally all of the above. We just moved here because we are looking to make more money and offer a better chance for our families.
Now, what would that better chance be? That's right. For that family to go on to continue exploiting the Americans. That's right. Because again, they're not going to teach their kids to respect this place. They're going to teach their kids to respect the shithole that they ran away from.
Did you know that the minimum wage a day, not an hour, a day in Mexico is not even 15 American dollars? Not even 15 American dollars. Right now with $15 in San Diego, I could go maybe buy a matcha and half of a granola bar, honey. If you support ICE, you support people getting destroyed. If you support families getting destroyed, I hope you rot in hell.
You first, lady. You first. See, this is the thing, is that that's who Shenabellos wants to protect. People who came in here to exploit the country. People who have absolutely no respect for the nation and are only here to leech off of it. To leech off of the success our ancestors, our grandparents and parents built. That's who she wants to protect. That's who she's so heckin' worried about not showing up on voting day. Are people like this broad. Because guess what? Without that vote, without that antsy-pantsy little Mexican Barbie here, without her, Shenabellos can't win. Because honest Americans aren't interested in continuing this cha-cha. We're not interested in doing this anymore. It was a neat little idea when we had these open hearts in the post-war utopian era. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, we all had our hearts open because we didn't want to be those weirdo Nazi fellas. All right? But now that time has passed because we've been made alarmingly aware that bitches like that lady come to this country not because of our hot dogs and baseball, not because of our nice cars, not because we have a fantastic way of accumulating talent, right? Not because we put a flag on the moon, not because we're planning on putting a flag on Mars, because we have money. And she wants some of that because Mexico will only buy her whatever a matcha is and half a granola thing. Oh no. Oh no. And again, I want to remind you that when these people come here, they're coming here with the idea that they're here to better themselves, not our nation. And I want to tell you that those people should stay in their own countries and fix the problem there that they're trying to get away from. If this lady does not like the amount of money that she's able to make in Mexico, then she should stay in Mexico and work to make sure that the economy can benefit people like her. Perhaps making sure that the peso isn't worth nothing. Wouldn't that be interesting? How about that? But rather than that, rather than build a better way of life in the land of her heritage, she has come here to scrape, to leech, to suck away the providence created for you and me and the other Americans that are descended from the people who broke their backs building this place. And it's wrong. I'll give you another example, and then we're headed over to Rupert Lowe. This one made me laugh. Like, this lady got caught in the middle of it. They're apparently wearing some type of soccer jersey to talk about something, and they got caught up in the moment.
What is the best country in the world?
What is the what?
What is the best country in the world?
Mexico, definitely for sure Mexico.
Mexico?
Mexico.
So why do you think these people don't want to go back?
I think it's because we sacrifice a lot to be here, and we all want people to come in the right way as well, but things are better over here in America, and they're gonna try their best to be here.
Well, you just said Mexico is the best country in the world.
It is, but I think that
Yeah, see, got totally caught in it, and she still couldn't tear herself away from it because, again, they came here to exploit our system. We have a high trust society. This is very hard to explain to lady folk in particular how this works, because this empathy, this false empathy that the left likes to employ, is they project their ideas on to folks from other countries, other ways of life. They think, oh yes, well, you have 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a mouth just like me, so you obviously want free health care. You obviously want to make sure that we all drive around in free electric cars and the super hyper communist good times forever lifestyle, right? Wrong. People like these 2 ladies, they come from a background of scarcity. I talk about this in almost every episode of Mainerville. Scarcity determines how a society is going to be shaped, what their values are. And a scarcity society is based around the idea that you will not have whatever advantage is present today, tomorrow. This is why we see people that will go up to vegetable stands and completely clean them out, having no way of eating all that food, but they have to collect it all because the advantage of having access to that food unfettered by security will never happen again in their society, which is where they come from. Thousands of years of this, in fact. So it's woven into the blood memory that they have. And again, they're not bad people for this. We're the bad ones trying to force them to come into a society that lives in the opposite way, the complete opposite. You and I will approach that vegetable stand, see an apple. We will leave $1 in the little basket or do the little card scan thing, however they do it. And you will take that apple under the understanding that because you have left some type of monetary reciprocation for the presence of that apple, that there will be another apple there next time. This is a high trust society. This is why we have things like the unmanned vegetable stand, is because we trust that not only will someone not clean out that place, but also the people that come there to that place, they can expect that if they are to reward the opportunity to have that vegetable stand, that that vegetable stand will stay there and remain available to them if they continue to reward its presence. But this doesn't exist in a scarcity society. Many of these people come from places where the water isn't clean to drink. Many of these people come from places where water is in absolute scarcity. In Somalia, for instance, more people have newer cell phones newer than you and I have, than they have cars, than they have access to clean clothes, to clean water, to a consistent source of good nutrition. Not just prepackaged foods or whatever bananas and rice are. The big thing that a lot of our lady friends tend to forget about this stuff is that it is good to have your heart in the right place. It really is. It is good to look at those who are unfortunate, that those who do not have the same type of luxuries that you do, and wish for them to have them as well. There is absolutely nothing wrong with going out into the world and seeing these places and seeing the suffering that these people go through and wanting to stop it. Even as someone as weird as Mr. Beast has made many attempts to try and correct the woes of a place like Africa. But we have to come down to the conclusion that because of the way that they live and have lived for centuries, their idea of the world is vastly different from ours. I mention this almost every episode of Mainerville. When you're not from the United States and you come here, you see this place as like a different world. It's space aliens. We don't even live similar lives to Europeans. Canadians don't even live like we do. I know this because my family's company ran a transportation service and we dealt a lot with merchant marines. And the merchant marines would, just be in awe of everything in America. You'd have people from Indonesia, the Philippines, Russia, both sides of Europe, well, both ends and sides. You'd have people from Africa. You'd have people from South America, from India, from just all over the world. Anywhere that they could teach you how to be on a ship, you'd come from. And when they all came to America, they were astonished, gobsmacked by just our regular lives. Not in the way of like, oh, I'm disgusted by all this waste. They were astonished that we lived in such harmony. You don't think so, but we do. That we lived in such harmony, that we possessed such advanced technology, and it had not destroyed us up until that point anyway. And also, above all, our women felt safe to be without the presence of a man. My mother ran a lot of these transportation services herself, and so she ended up taking care of transporting these sailors most of the time. And these men around the world knew her as Miss Laurie. And so I have a joke that if you're ever lost in the world, just walk up to a shipping terminal, a coastal shipping terminal, and say, "Take me to Miss Laurie." And they'll put you on the boat and they'll take you to Maine. You can at least get back to Maine. And that's the thing, is that my mother became so important because she would take these men to these shopping centers and go around with them and help them, communicate what they needed to bring back to their countries as like evidence that America exists and this fantastic technology is there. One of the guys explained to me that he buys a bunch of those Sony Vaio laptops, or back in the day anyway. He bought a bunch of them to fill up his suitcase. Like, he left his clothes here. He threw his clothes out, filled up his big old trunk suitcase full of laptops because in his country, they don't get premium technology. They get the stuff that's way, way, way knocked down from what we get. So he's basically taking back premium technology. These guys can't even order this stuff in their countries back to them. And again, selling it for a massive amount of price. They'd buy shoes, they'd buy lingerie for their ladies, that sort of stuff. And again, this was all available to them and they had never witnessed it in this way before. Yes, they had seen malls. Yes, they had seen cars. Yes, they were aware that women weren't walking around with hijabs all the time, that sort of thing. However, they were not prepared for the reality of all of that. We have to really remember when we're bringing people from these other countries that what we need to do is say, whoa, 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 you are motivated for change. You see opportunity. You are seeking out that opportunity, whether for good reason or bad, but you're seeking it out. Now, let's make sure that you don't have to leave your country to get that done. Let's make sure that we help get some investment in there to turn your country around to a place of where you have a stable source of food and water and clean water. You have a stable housing environment. You have an environment where you women are not afraid to go around without the company of men. Okay? Maybe that would be better than plucking these people out of an environment that's nearly a war zone every day and then dropping them into a place that's completely antithetical to that and expecting them just to snap to. But I've kept everybody waiting long enough. Let's drop over here to Rupert Lowe. If you're not familiar, Rupert Lowe is a British MP, and what that means is he's equivalent of a senator, I believe. And what he is he's representing, I believe it's Yorkshire? Yarmouth, excuse me, the Great Yarmouth, not our Yarmouth, their Yarmouth. And what he has done is he has stepped out and said that the Reform Party by Nigel Farage is not ferocious enough. It's trying to make peace with the elements that are counterintuitive to peaceful British life. And so he made an announcement video about all of this, but now he stepped forward just a couple of days ago to give a speech regarding what he originally announced and to clarify the platform of the Restore Britain Party. This is real. This is a real party. And to give you some context, since that video launched and the party accepted memberships, they now have over 60,000 party members in just a few days. I think it's been less than a week, and they already have 60,000 party members that have jumped into this.
About what I'm going to say to you. And I've come to a stark conclusion. There is simply no other way. This is the only choice. You elected me to Parliament in 2024. The good people of Great Yarmouth elected me. Not for 1 second in Westminster have I forgotten that. I am here to represent you and your priorities. You sent me there to fight for change, not to do things how they've always been done, not to accept more and more relentless decline. You sent me there to try and fix things. And I have tried. I've honestly tried. And it almost got me sent to prison.
Now, if you don't know, Rupert Lowe had a falling out with the Reform Party, not the Restore, Reform Party. And what ended up happening was they accused him of attempting to murder, plotting to murder another party member. And it got him thrown into jail. Now, of course, he never plotted to do any of that, but this was all that petty teenage girl, high school drama stuff that happens when you're dealing with socialists.
I've used every tool available to a backbench member of Parliament, and more. Parliamentary questions, committees, motions, speeches, petitions, everything and anything. Sometimes we succeeded, more often than not, we haven't. The system simply will not shift. But we have tried, and we've tried again, and again, and again. And nothing has shaped my thinking more than our crowd-funded independent inquiry into the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs.
Now, one of the things that people are really appreciating about Rupert's stance here is that he is not pulling his punches, that he is not attempting to try and cushion his speech about any of this. He is not attempting to make sure that people think that, oh, yes, well, you know, the sex abuse problem in this country is everybody's problem. No, he's making sure that he's pointing the fingers where they need to be pointed in order to get an end to this stuff. And what ended up happening was that they had to do a completely independent inquiry into what was happening with the sex abuse gangs. And what ended up happening was they were proven right in every one of their suspicions.
An inquiry that should never have had to exist.
Bingo.
An inquiry that I created only because the political system itself would not act. That inquiry has been the most sobering experience of my public life.
And again, they had their suspicions. They had wondered, but the scale of it. This is where we found out about all this Rotterdam stuff, about the 1,400 girls that were harmed by more than 2,000 men, this sort of thing. All of this came out of this probe.
Not just because of the awful crimes, not just because of the horrific suffering, but because of what it exposed about the way this country is governed. Again and again, we heard the same story at our hearings over the last fortnight. Warnings raised, concerns logged, evidence submitted, and then nothing. Nothing happened. Not because people did not know, but because acting would have been difficult. Because acting would have caused controversy. It would have inflamed racial tensions.
This was the primary reason why they didn't report on Rotterdam, why they made sure the knowledge of what was going on with these 1,500 girls stayed completely quiet as they continued to try and process these guys and get them into courts and things like that without it spilling over into public opinion, because they were deathly afraid that somebody might get mad and they'd end up having to make their own curry. I'm not kidding you. When we get into these discussions about this stuff, the same arguments that our left makes is the same arguments that the British left are making. That we need to have these people around to make exotic food for us. It's all of this attitude that makes these migrants, these illegal entrants, these people, they seem like a slave class to the left. Listen to how they talk about what these people are here to do. It sounds very much like they're talking about a slave class, a secondary class, a group of people that will be looked down on as lesser forever. It doesn't sound like an equal. Doesn't sound like a migrant. Doesn't sound like someone who's immigrated into the country to become a citizen alongside you. When the left talks about these people, they are talking about a use for them.
It came with personal and professional risk. It would have meant being labeled an Islamophobe or a racist.
Oh, no.
So people did nothing. They let the abuse continue all over the country. Even worse, many officials were even involved in the rapes themselves. We must call it what it is. It was, and still is, to this day, the rape of Britain. They can call me Islamophobic, racist, or whatever else. Emily Maitlis did so. Let me be abundantly clear with you tonight. I do not care. I would rather be labeled a racist than to enable rape.
I mean, that's what you're looking at, okay? That's what you're looking at. You must realize that the left has weaponized your empathy. This is something that conservatives have a very, very hard time with, is we don't want to be known as the bad guy. Because in our heart of hearts, we're not the bad guy. We don't look at other people and say, you are inferior because you're different than me. We want to make sure that you're here to help things. It's like a lot of the black comedians will talk about how conservatives just don't care if they're successful or not. It's just like, well, good for you. You want a medal? You know, they treat them like equals, whereas the left wants to pat them on the head like, oh, wow, you're an extraordinary one. I didn't think any of you had the ability to do this. Look at you. You're so smart. The left does that to them, diminishes them, treats them poorly. And so the right does not want to be considered racist. So the label is very difficult for people to be able to just ignore. And what we have to do is ignore it. Because you have to understand, in your heart of hearts, you're not acting on this because you have any base hatred of someone because they're different. What this reason for, what the reason why we are having this argument at all with the left is because people are continuing to commit these crimes in a certain demographic, okay? And when you see a concentration of that in the demographic, you have to understand that a belief system is associated with that. That doesn't just materialize because all of those people seem to like eating at the same curry hut, all right? The reality is that they share an ideology, and that ideology is destructive. That ideology commands them to take advantage of people. That ideology commands them to eliminate opposition. And that ideology also permits them to act terribly toward people that they're not part of their ideology. That's what Mr. Lowe is explaining here. It's very deep. It's sort of nuanced. But the reality is that you and me, we just have to get used to being called names. They called us Nazi and we survived it. We'll survive being called racists. I promise you. We'll make it through to the other side. But we have to tolerate that sinking feeling in our gut when you have people screaming horrible things at you, trying to label you some horrible monster, when in reality, you just don't want kids raped.
Our inquiry will not just talk. We are going to act. A target list is already being made of rapists, police officers, social workers, council officials, politicians, and NHS employees. We will take out private prosecutions and civil litigation. We will be relentless in our pursuit.
And why they're cheering is that they have had a complete dereliction of responsibility from those police, from those social workers, from those politicians because of this fear around racism or the kickbacks that they were getting from organizations most likely funded by the Soros family, father and son.
Our aim is very straightforward: to put people in prison.
Greg.
I reached a point sitting through evidence, listening to survivors, reading documents that should make every public servant hang their head in shame, and it became impossible to ignore the bigger truth. The problem is not confined to one department. It is not confined to one policy area. It is not confined to one political party. It sweeps through the entire governing culture of this country.
He's not wrong about Britain, but here's what I want to remind you guys is Maine has the same problem. Every institution, public and private in this state that matters to dealing with the government, medical, dealing with insurance, dealing with parks and recreation, all of it. Every part of it has been ideologically captured by the left, okay? Ideologically captured. And when I say that, I mean that they're all on board with this crazy shenanigans of trying to fight ICE, of trying to make sure that boys can compete in girls' sports and then also be in the locker rooms with them. That sort of situation that we can't seem to shake from the left is what the Rupert is referring to on his end, is that in England, every institution they have has been ideologically captured. Here in Maine, the same thing has happened.
A culture of risk avoidance, a culture of reputational management, a culture of endless consultation and permanent deferral, a culture where process matters more than outcome, where responsibility is spread so thin that nobody is ever held accountable.
How about that? Doesn't that sound familiar? That you spread the pot around so much that nobody anywhere can hold anybody accountable because the pieces are too small to put together into the big picture.
That is why I've come to this conclusion. Britain does not need tinkering, minor reform around the edges, not carefully curated cosmetic changes, just this time with the same failed ministers wearing a turquoise rosette. It needs restoration, full-scale restoration. A restoration of courage, a restoration of responsibility, a restoration of a political culture that exists to serve the public, not simply protect itself.
Now, what he's talking about is what we're suffering from in Maine right now. We are dealing with Democrats that want to save face with their bought and paid for slave class that they've imported in here. I'll remind you, Ani Jan let us know that she's imported 67,000 new Mainers. You understand? 67,000 of them in here. So what you have to now believe in your heart of hearts is that those folks are going to vote in their best interests. And guess what? That's not going to be from one of our Republicans. No, 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 no. They're going to come through true blue for the Democrat candidate. They're going to make sure that they vote in the interest of making sure that those people stay in power because they're afraid of losing that slave class's approval. We saw that happen when Muhammad came in and explained that, well, one of the Muhammads in Lewiston came in and explained that he was going to tell his community to not vote Democrat if they continued to ask questions about fraud. It's gangster politics. It's a political system that is obsessed with face and it's obsessed with procedure in order to make sure that any meaningful change becomes bogged down in red tape, in debate, and people lose interest. They lose the heat that they have when they initially arrive at the conclusion that they have in order to get this far in the conversation. And it's all by design to make sure that the progression of our nations, the progression of our state of Maine, is brought to a grinding halt.
I've tried to work within the system, and I will continue to fight inside Parliament. But I can no longer pretend that the existing political structures are capable of delivering the scale of change this country now needs and at the pace that is now required. The will is simply not there. That is why today I am launching Restore Britain as a national political party.
And we need to think about Restore Maine as, if not a political party, then an actual platform within the GOP. Because we need to take this seriously. We need to make sure that everybody understands that there's nothing wrong with making sure that Maine is Maine, that Maine is for Mainers, that Maine follows the law. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of things wrong with flaunting the law, with making sure that you're not obeying it, with making sure that you're gaming the law, with making sure that you're committing fraud. There's a lot to be gained from that if you're evil. But that's where we're at right now. And that's why we need to have this, Restore Maine platform. We need to take it seriously about getting people out of here that don't belong here. And I'm not talking about, oh yeah, that guy doesn't get sunburned, so he needs to leave. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who deliberately entered this state and country illegally. And they know it. I'm talking about people like these Chinese drug lords that are going around pumping our state full, and rather the country actually, full of this harmful stuff. Steve Robinson did a report on this intensely addictive, intensely toxic cannabis drink that it's now available in our convenience stores. It has absolutely no FDA testing whatsoever. But because these people are able to buy their way in, thanks to all that grubby money from the CCP, boom, we've got this poison on our streets. It's like the bath salts problem all over again. What do you know? Where did that come from? You bet. You guessed it. This is the issue that we're going to continue to keep running into until we put Maine first. It's very nice to have MAGA, and yes, America is also important because that's our nation, obviously, but Maine must be our focus. It's very nice that people in Texas are going through what they're going through. Good for them. I'm glad to see that they're going to put an end to the rapid expansion of Islamification. I'm glad that they're going to stop that. But we need to make sure that we're paying attention to Maine's effort to make sure that that doesn't happen here. Okay? Just as England was swallowed very quickly, that only 30% of Londoners were actually English, just so too can Augusta become near nothing of Mainers and totally occupied by people who are not and have no interest in Maine or America or the values therein, but rather come here for the money, for the free stuff, to exploit, to harm.
At the next general election, we will put forward hundreds of qualified candidates from outside the existing political establishment. They will not be failed ministers. They will not be politicians. They will be men and women who have succeeded in their own fields and want to deliver a better Britain.
So this is what I was talking about earlier. Now, he's put the standard very high that we should go and find leaders of industry. I understand that's not so easy here in Maine. All right, I understand that's not so easy here in Maine. That's why I say the 9-to-5 Mainer, the regular Joe, the average worker here in Maine needs to go out and be represented, needs to go out and seek to become a representative, a senator or mayor or a counselor, whatever it comes to be, school board member. Because if we don't, those seats are going to be occupied by the left and are going to continue haranguing our culture until there's nothing left of it. And so while Rupert Lowe is looking for consummate professionals, Olympians, these sorts of people, here in Maine, I think our standard can be a little looser. I think we can say that, you work at a tire warehouse, you're managing tire warehouse, you want to run for office, well, how can we help you? If you're a guy that works for Roto-Rooter and you go around making sure that people are able to keep their pipes clean and you want to be part of the political process, we need to make sure that you have a part in that. We can't keep saying that these people who have such a prominent resume are allowed to do things, because that's what happens. Those people with prominent resumes, they tend to get a little deep in things that maybe you and I don't want in power. They tend to make connections that are a little awkward to explain to grandma, okay? And I'm not talking about just about the Epstein files. I'm talking about just kind of the shady stuff that goes on as the higher you go up in power. All right, you don't necessarily have to be a baby-eating psychopath, right? But you do end up getting into sticky situations in order to continue accumulating power, in order to continue accumulating money, that sort of thing. At a certain level, you do have to betray your values in order to keep going. All right? Anybody who's ever accumulated any type of power that mattered, any type of money that mattered, they will tell you that they had to do things that they do regret, but they don't regret the outcome of what happened.
This will be an entirely different way of doing politics. Restore Britain will be the national umbrella organization. And we will work with local parties to deliver local priorities for local people. Great Yarmouth First will be the pilot. Our sister party, based here in Great Yarmouth, focusing purely on implementing local change.
Yes.
We will run a joint ticket at the election, and I will be the candidate here in Great Yarmouth once again.
So again, he's not going out here and trying to ask other people to fight his battles for him. He is putting his neck on the line for this. And this is another attitude that we need to make sure that we have here in Maine about this, is that just as Rupert is talking about with these consummate professionals, and I'm just going to reiterate it again, we need to have 9 to 5 Mainers running for office. We need to have regular people out there getting, into the school boards, into city councilor, into these local elections, because the seats of power are there. Look at how much trouble the councilors in Lewiston have caused. The entire state's talking about that place. So try and tell me that city councilors and mayors don't have the ability to shake and move.
I hope other local political parties will come together and help us to fight for a better Britain. If we can get this right, we can transform British politics forever, forging an entirely new way. I simply could no longer justify asking you to place your faith in a system that has repeatedly shown it cannot or will not fix itself.
And again, this is what we're voting on in November. We are voting to decide if Maine is going to be a place that is worth living in. There have been many prominent Mainers that have said that if this election goes to the Democrats in November, they're leaving. They're out of here. It's over with. They're not going to fight anymore. The reality that we're stuck up against is that this has gone on for so long. The can has been kicked down the line so long that we cannot sit here and pretend that Maine is a place that can wait, that Maine is a place that can go on a back burner. We are at the point right now where Shenna Bellows thinks that she can get universal health care taken care of in this state. Now, I don't want anybody to suffer, but I also don't want to make sure that the state is given some type of blank check to continue jacking taxes up because somebody somewhere has some deep vein thrombosis, and we got to make sure that we're paying $10 or $15 billion for their care when we find out, by the way, that care was completely fraudulent and made up. Isn't that interesting? Universal health care just opens the gates for all this medical abuse that we're already seeing happening.
It needs a serious program of national restoration. And that's exactly what Restore Britain is being built to deliver. First, immigration.
This is important.
Restore Britain will not manage mass immigration. We will not just stop mass immigration, we will reverse it.
Now, a lot of people have talked about this particular line at no end, really, but the takeaway that I like the most is that this starts a domino effect. If Rupert's team is allowed to go in there, if his group wins enough seats and they're allowed to influence the election, maybe even get their own prime minister in, this means that the first of the European states, I know the British don't like to consider themselves Europe, but Americans can't tell the difference. Anyway, the first of the European states will start to fall like a domino. You'll see the other European countries see that lead, right? And they'll jump in. They'll get in and want to do this deportation thing. They want to make sure that they're making sure that they're removing the violent criminals first, and then making sure that they're removing the people that just entered illegally. And what's important about understanding that progression is that a lot of the movers and shakers, the decision makers, the people that were ready for change left Europe and became Americans. That's right, you and me. Our ancestors were the ones that were capable of doing what Mr. Lowe is doing. Okay? They're the ones that left. The people that are left in Europe now are people that come from thousands of years of kneeling to inbred kings and queens. Okay? Serfs. And so they don't possess this ability to stand up and do their own thing anymore. That's why America has remained so unique in the entire world, is because it's made up of people that immigrated from Western Europe, mostly, into this country that were motivated for change, willing to go through the most extreme kind of sacrifice available at the time in order to make that change manifest. And because Mr. Lowe is doing this, and if he's successful in accumulating power, the Europeans, who are very used to following, will finally have a model to follow, and they will pursue it with all of their might.
Illegal entry will mean detention and removal.
Love to see it.
Not years later, not after endless legal paralysis, all funding the parasitic legal profession.
How about
not
that?
after being absorbed into a permanent asylum industry. If you enter this country illegally, a Restore Britain government will remove you within 24 hours of arrival.
Wow. Just like that, you're out, Chief. You don't get a free house. You don't even get a hotel room, apparently.
If you are living in the country illegally, you will be detained and you will be deported.
We love to see it.
They must all go. This is absolutely non-negotiable. Restore Britain would abolish the entire asylum system.
It's been abused. It's been abused, so I can't see why he wouldn't.
No more asylum seekers. The scam will end. We will round up every third world criminal who has broken into our country, and we will remove them.
Out the door they go.
Without compensation, without delay, without apology.
And by the sounds of it,
Do
without
that,
a warm dinner.
and the boats will stop overnight. Restore Britain has already published the most comprehensive deportation policy ever produced in Britain. We are now seeking the power to implement it.
Yes.
Legal immigration will almost come to a complete halt.
You can't vet who's coming in fast enough. They've got to make sure that they close the door.
We will close off entire visa routes from countries which are proven to provide us with criminals, sex pests, and illegal migrants.
It's quite a list these days.
Zero immigration, net zero immigration, is weak, weak, weak. It is insufficient, and it is too late. The barbarians are already in the gates.
Stopping it isn't enough. You have to reverse
For the foreseeable future, far more people must leave Britain than arrive. A country simply cannot survive without shared expectations and a shared culture.
Scalia talked about this back in the early 2000s. He was explaining that diversity is fine, but diversity alone does not make a nation. A shared culture, a unified idea, and expectation of behavior and how that nation is going to conduct itself is exactly what creates a unified people. Not all of this multiculturalism, which it never manifests that way, by the way. It's always pocket cultures that vie for control of the main culture.
Language matters, contribution matters, respect for our law matters.
What do you know?
All of that matters. If a foreign national is living in Britain and unable to speak English, refuses to work, claims benefits, lives in social housing, hates our way of life, or even wants to do us harm, then they must leave or be made to leave.
Very simple. Very simple.
I make no apologies for this, for saying this. Millions must go.
Millions must go. For us, tens of thousands must go.
Welfare. We must always protect British people who genuinely cannot work.
Yep.
That is our moral duty. But the current system has completely failed. It is stagnant. It writes people off. It traps people.
Yes.
It teaches too many people that dependency is far safer than ambition. Restore Britain will rebuild welfare around participation, rehabilitation, and expectation. If you can work, you must work.
There you go.
If you...
This is something that we have battled for a very long time in the state. Paul LePage tried to manifest this, and of course, Jan undid it as quick as she could, or most of what she could. The work to welfare, welfare to work sort of thing. The system in which you have to work if you're able to work, and that work could be diminished, right? Or it could just simply be that you're completely incapable of working, but you must do something. Because it's not just that the system can't sustain having millions and hundreds of thousands, well, here in Maine, hundreds of thousands of people on a check. Is that the reality behind that is that mentally, as a man or a woman, any type of human, you must do something. You must be proactive in some way. You must be in motion, forward motion preferably, but you must be in motion. And this type of program takes people out of the depression that ends up making those disabilities that got them on the program much worse. It takes these people and puts them in environments where they can perform. Right now, we have a system that encourages defeat, that encourages people to hide away from the world. Just as Mr. Lowe is talking about in the UK, it encourages people to avoid risk. It encourages people to resist the call of ambition. And look where we are. Look where we are.
If you can train, you will train. But if you are able and repeatedly refuse to engage, you will lose your benefits.
Ta-da!
Restore Britain would remove access to benefits for every single foreign national living in Britain.
What he's trying to explain is it is completely wrong to come to their country and expect that country to take care of this new person. I know what you're thinking immediately, like your heart says, oh yes, well, this person came here needing, we should take care of them. No. This is not the goal of the United States. We attached that placard at the Statue of Liberty long after it arrived here. And it really was against a great deal of the public that it was attached there, because this is not the belief of the United States. We are a place where we manifest destiny. When you come here, you come to improve the American experience, not take advantage of it. And this is a great deal of the mistake I think that the boomers really kind of contributed to, and how their attitude about America being one big blob. And the states aren't that unique between each other. They're just all sort of neat places to live that kind of sort of have their own personality, but it's all America, one big blob. This attitude about it made it easy for people out from outside to exploit this system and get in this welfare thing. Like, oh, well, I come from somewhere else. It's another blob. I'm come to join your blob now, and I need help. And they go, oh, well, you poor person, welcome to our blob. Here's some money. Let's see if we can get you comfortable. This is the problem. That person should be ejected. Sorry, we're not here to take care of the world. We're very sorry. We learned our lesson on that one. So no, you can go back to the country you're at, and we will make sure that we're getting investment to come into your country in order to make sure you don't feel the compulsion to leave. That you feel as though opportunity is where you are, so you don't have to come here to exploit what we're doing. I showed you the video earlier about that.
They would lose access to universal credit, social housing, disability benefits, everything. It will all go.
Very simple. If you're not part of the country, get out.
If you are a
You're not getting
guest
any
in our
benefits.
country, you will support yourself.
Bingo.
If you cannot do that, then you must leave.
Sounds pretty simple, right? You'd be
I
surprised
make
how
no
many people
apologies for
struggle.
saying so. Now, to the economy. Because Britain is strangling itself, suffocating, dying, we punish effort. We punish risk-taking. We punish small business. We punish productivity. We punish success. It must all change.
Yes.
We regulate endlessly and then wonder why nothing gets done.
Gee, doesn't that sound familiar? Endless regulations, licensing fees, rule changes. It's wow. How come the economy's so freaking stuck on tourism? How come we're losing all of our unskilled labor? How come the wealth generators that made our grandparents so wealthy in their old age, how come those wealth generators that were there when they were younger aren't here when we were younger?
Restore Britain will slash taxes on work and enterprise. Income, dividend, corporation, VAT, stamp duty, thresholds for all these must rise, and tax must fall.
In order to be subject to those things, the bar for that subjugation must be much higher,
We will
and the
scrap
taxes must be...
IR35. We will double the VAT threshold. We will burn down the regulatory frameworks that crunch small businesses. We will end the HR culture that paralyzes and blackmails employers.
The HR culture that paralyzes and blackmails industries. How about that? Doesn't that sound familiar? Everybody's got a tyrannical HR department that just invents stuff all the time to create a problem about, and then all of a sudden the company's productivity has to go in the toilet while everybody gets trained about some stupid thing that didn't happen. Isn't that interesting?
We will restore long-term policy stability, because businesses cannot invest if the rules change every year. Farmers cannot plan if policy shifts with every consultation. Manufacturers cannot expand if planning and energy frameworks remain incoherent. We will back domestic energy production.
Boy, wouldn't that be nice if Maine decided to generate its own energy? It'd be really crazy if some guy just went out there and put out a proposal on how to make that like more interesting to people as opposed to just a straight up power plant, that it did something else in order to make other things more possible around here to sweeten the pot about getting nuclear power active in Maine. Wouldn't it be crazy if somebody just put that proposal out there for anybody to look at? Man, that would be weird, right? Weird.
We will back the reindustrialization of Britain.
Please
we
come
will
to
back
Maine.
British farming. This is a national restoration program, because the deeper problem in Britain is not only financial, it's cultural. We have slowly lost confidence in ourselves as a nation. We've become reluctant to defend the things that used to bind our society together. Restore Britain will be unapologetic about this. Britain is not simply an economic zone. It's not just a collection of institutions. It's not just a legal jurisdiction. It is a nation, a people, a home, our home.
Thank you. Wouldn't that be nice if somebody said that about Maine, that Maine isn't an economic zone, that it's not a place just to occupy and make money, that it's actually a home, that it's actually got its own legacy, its heritage, its culture, that's very unique and pretty much centered on just itself. Even New Hampshire isn't similar in culture to Maine. We have very different ideas about things, different ways of conveying ourselves, and of course, a different demographic makeup than even our next door neighbors, Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Isn't that interesting? That it's worth fighting for, and it's worth saying so, that this is a unique place.
With a shared culture, shared history, shared expectations, Restore Britain will openly recognize the Christian heritage that shaped this country's moral and civic foundations. Responsibility, duty, restraint, forgiveness, and most importantly, fairness.
for British people, not just anybody that manages to make it to the island.
These values created a high-trust society. We must support parents as the primary decision makers in their children's lives.
Now, we've heard our primary candidates here in the Republican Party talk about this, that parents should have the right to say, you know what, these teachers are crazy, these influencers are crazy, my child has nothing to do with this, and I'm not a psychopath, I'm not child abusing them by resisting the transing of my child. How about that?
We will protect family life. We will support British men and women to raise their family in a country they are proud to call home.
How about that? If you want them to go fight in Ukraine, you have to give them a reason to go fight in Ukraine. They're not going to go fight a war in order to protect an economic zone, in order to make sure that anybody can come in and destroy everything, in order to protect 1,400, the abusers of 1,400 girls, all right? They're not going to do that. They're not going to go to war to protect all that. They need to be raised in a country that means something for them to want to protect it. And they should want to protect it. It's not evil to have a young man decide, you know what, this country is worth sacrificing for. That's not an evil thing to do. It's an evil thing to send them into a worthless war, to have them sacrifice themselves for absolutely nothing at all that matters to the home country. But having that patriotism and passion for the place that they live in is very important.
We will restore that high trust culture. We will uphold one legal system, one rule of law, one standard, no parallel justice, no religious exceptions. British law must remain supreme.
Wouldn't that be nice if we had a candidate that was saying, like, we're not going to do this game of, like, your religion allows you to do this. No, no. If it's against the law, it's against the law. There's no religious exemption. This is how it works.
Restore Britain will end the creeping Islamification of Britain.
We need this in Maine. Doesn't seem like it right now, but we do.
Halal and kosher slaughter will be banned on British soil.
These are very barbaric practices compared to what we do in order to make sure that we have meat prepared. If you're not familiar, in the Islamic halal, the animal has to be conscious during the harvesting process. That's right. So it's full of fear and pain. That's what they want. They want all those fear and pain hormones in the meat.
The burqa will be outlawed.
Very simple. It is a symbol of oppression.
And Sharia courts will be made illegal.
Which they should be anyway. You know, just be honest with yourself.
Unfettered immigration from Islamic countries will end. Britain is a Christian country, and under a Restore Britain government, it will remain a Christian country. We will govern with confidence. We will not apologise for wanting Britain to remain cohesive and to remain British.
There's nothing wrong with Maine remaining Maine for Mainers. There's nothing wrong with that. You are not evil for having that belief. You're not evil for saying, you know, when I grew up, it was 98% white here, and we didn't have gangs, we didn't have these horrible crimes, meth labs weren't burning down all the time, and there were no lynchings either. It's okay to say that. There's nothing wrong with saying that when Maine was 98% white, things were more peaceful. That does not mean that white people are better. What that means is a homogenous society tends to get along with itself better. Just look at Japan.
Restore Britain is not offering you a miracle cure. Our programme is serious and honest. It will require discipline, It will require courage, and it will require, most importantly, patience.
Yes, it's going to be very painful.
And it will
to
require
accomplish
the
all
willingness to accept short-term discomfort in exchange for long-term national restoration.
And again, what he's talking about is prices rising, the availability of goods getting thinner for a time, and making sure also that they break their dependence on European nations' imports and whatnot. So that's going to make, again, neighboring businesses that depend on neighboring relationships with Europe, those are going to end up being strained, and probably, some of them may break because of that straining.
Because it will be painful, difficult decisions will have to be taken. But I will always be honest with you about the extent of the task ahead.
Yes.
But let me end where I began. I'm not pessimistic about Britain. I would not be standing here if I were. This country has the most extraordinary people, the best people on this planet.
I wouldn't expect him to say anything else.
With incredible skill, decency, and intelligence. What it lacks is the leadership prepared to act for the long term and tell the brutal truth about what we will require in the coming months and years. So today is the beginning of a necessary journey, and I ask you to help build it, to help restore competence, confidence, and national purpose in British politics.
Yes.
Because Britain is our country, it is our people, it is our home. And it is now our collective responsibility to restore it. Thank you.
And just like he says, it is our collective responsibility to restore Maine. We have, as I was talking to you guys earlier, we have a responsibility as 9 to 5 average people to go out there and get involved in this, to be present, to witness it at the least. We need to be there to be heard, because otherwise the Democrats, the leftists, the communists are going to continue to march forward and take over everything as our apathy prevents us from getting involved in this. I know that you have to work. I know that you have children, and I know you have obligations to your church. But please take a minute and think about how active you are being, and if you can find a role to be a part of. It may just be as simple as making sure that you're making a phone call on behalf of a local candidate. It may be as simple as showing up to that candidate's meeting space and making sure that you're helping get things together for door knockers. Perhaps you're one of those people that goes around door knocking. Perhaps you're a candidate yourself. But please, please consider becoming part of the effort to restore Maine, to build it back into something that we truly respect, that we truly have our pride in, to claw back our industries and to build new ones as well, to free us from a dependence on Canadian energy, to free us from a dependence on the rest of the states, that we ourselves can sustain what we need to do here in order to survive, and not only survive, but live comfortably. My parents had a saying when I was growing up, that you don't live in Maine. Nobody lives in Maine. We survive here. And I believe that now is the time we have the opportunity to change that life doesn't have to be so hard here, that we have an opportunity to bring new industry here, to build new industry here, to bring forth a new way of life, a new Maine from the very soil that we walk upon. Everything we need is already here to build something that'll turn the world's head, okay? What we have to do is believe in ourselves, to believe that this group of people who may or may not be under 1 million after Mr. Holman ends up cleaning out the illegals here, these people, our people, Mainers, have the ability to change our destiny. That we don't need Washington to come in and make cosmetic changes for us. That we don't need a little turn of the knob here and a turn of the knob there. That we need to completely wipe the slate clean on all of this stuff and go back to the basics that our founders laid out for us and build back from there. Now, I know build back better is a bad thing, but you have to understand where I'm coming from on this is to build something. that we cannot hope to just reach into the wreckage of all of this mess and hope to pull out the state that we want to live in. We have to build it. We have to manifest it. These hands of ours must get into the middle of the mess, into the middle of the political mess at that, in order to manifest that Maine that we want. So I ask you, please consider now what you are doing to help this state. And if you are available to do more, perhaps in the summer your schedule will loosen up. But please consider it, that you can become part of this, that it is not social sewer slide to get involved with politics as a Republican in Maine, that in fact you're going to find more people who are like-minded like you that are also searching for these types of connections in order to build powerful coalitions that are able to take control of this state and steer us away from the cliff where we end up just being a collection of tombstones of people wandering around wondering what happened to all the people that lived in Maine. For now, guys, I want to remind you, though, that if you're new to this, please make sure that you share this around. Maynardville is growing. The primary goal of Maynardville is to make sure that we have a place for right-of-center voices to be heard. I want to make sure that we get all of the people that are already streaming and podcasting around on this channel. So feel free to let me know who I should be inviting around to have a conversation with. And also, if you want to be part of this, let me know and we'll have you on as well. We need to make sure that people feel comfortable expressing themselves on this stuff. We need to make sure that we're able to articulate our ideas in a public space, because when the time comes, that ability is going to be very, very necessary. So for now, this is the end of this episode of Maynardville. And as always, guys, good luck out there.